Discovering my ex on the streets, the incredible truth. He revealed, changed everything forever. The chill in the air mirrored the numbness in Sarah's heart as she hurried home from another grueling shift. The echo of beeping monitors and hushed whispers from the hospital lingered in her mind. Just when she thought she could push through, she spotted him, a frail shadow scavenging through forgotten scraps on the sidewalk. Jake, the boy with the wild heart who once sang the nights away with her. His soulful eyes held stories of ambition and laughter that now seemed faded and forlorn. A wave of nostalgia crashed into her, leaving her caught between moments of the past and the stark reality that had twisted his life into a painful spiral. How had he ended up here? Her heart raced as she wrestled with the familiar emotions swirling within her. Love mingled with sorrow. Anger danced with empathy. Jake had aspirations, a future to seize, but all that remained were whispers of dreams, long silenced by addiction. She hesitated, her pulse quickening. The very thought of approaching him sent an icy trickle of fear down her spine. Max, her 8-year-old son, was her priority. What would Jake's presence bring into their lives? What if he disrupted the stability she had fought so hard to maintain? She took a step back, scanning the streets, her mind racing. Her son needed a secure environment, not the ghost of a man she once adored. But as she turned to leave, she felt the pull of her heart, a tight knot of longing and responsibility. The commitment to her professional life and motherhood weighed heavily on her shoulders, while the pangs of unfulfilled dreams bore down on her spirit. Art. It surged within her, buried under hospital shifts and parenting, suddenly ignited by the familiar spark she saw in Jake's weary grin. The days turned into a series of accidental encounters, where just a few moments slipped through their fingers each time. Each conversation revealed flickers of the poetic musician she had once known. His voice still resonated with the dreams they had spun together late into the night. With every visit, she felt a salve to her own deep-seated emptiness, yet that same light also ignited a profound unease within her. Balancing a fragile connection with a man who was a remnant of her past while keeping Max shielded felt impossible. If she let Jake in even a little, what would it mean for them both? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as she contemplated how to draw boundaries, life threw her into chaos. Max fell ill, an unexpected fever that deepened into something more serious. Panic seized her throat as she raced to the hospital, sucking air in gasps. She was losing control. The very fabric of her world felt as though it might unravel. In moments like this, the weight of motherhood pressed down harder than ever, and she silently questioned whether she could ever afford to be vulnerable again. Staring into Max's small, pale face, she felt torn between the echo of Jake's voice that still threaded its way into her veins and the urgency to safeguard her son against life's uncertainties. Watching him fight, a flicker of Jake's tenacity sparked within her, so unlike the frail man she had encountered. With each agonizing hour, Sarah realized that every choice, every risk weighed upon her in a battle between love and survival. Jake's potential flickered like a dying ember in her mind. Would she dare reach for a life she once craved while the shadows of the past loomed bigger? The looming questions hung in the air, and she stood on the precipice of an unresolved conflict. What sacrifices would she be willing to make for love, for family, and most importantly, for herself? Each passing day at the hospital felt like an eternity, the fluorescent lights casting a sterile glow that mirrored Sarah's own sense of confinement. Max's illness became her singular focus, a tight, gnawing knot of anxiety that left little room for anything else. the weight of his fragile existence pressed down harder than any shift she had endured. She became a ghost in her own life, floating through conversations with colleagues, her mind flitting back to the re-emerging specter of Jake. But was it fair to let this connection linger when Max needed all her energy? Whenever moments of quiet set in between the hospital chaos, her thoughts would drift to Jake. She recalled late-night conversations, shared dreams, their fervent plans sizzling in the cool night air. Each memory, however exhilarating, carried the burden of what could have been, a cruel reminder of opportunities lost to addiction and the reckless choices that followed. As days turned into nights, the hospital rooms held little comfort. Rounds with Max's doctors brought mixed news, mostly cautious optimism, each word a fragile thread that could fray at any moment. Sarah's heart leaped with the slightest hint of improvement, only to plummet back into despair with fresh complications. She often caught herself staring at the child-sized beds in the wing, imagining shadows of what life could have looked like if their lives had been different. One evening, she sat at Max's bedside, the rhythmic beeping of the monitors fading into her thoughts. The candle's light she had brought along flickered, casting patterns on the wall, moments of warmth amidst the cold sterility. In that dim glow, she envisioned the art that had always been her refuge. It wasn't lost on her that each brushstroke had once been a part of her, a testament to another existence where she was free to create, not merely exist. Jake's presence haunted her like a muse, his artistic soul intertwining with memories of her own past aspirations. Could they both rise from their own ashes together, or was she destined to drown in the weight of her loyalty to Max? She mulled over this question, grappling with the notion that perhaps allowing Jake back into her life could ignite a spark within her to heal, not just for herself, but for both of them. Driven by her need for clarity, Sarah made a choice. She would confront the conflict head-on. The very next day, after a sleepless night filled with indecision, she found herself walking to the coffee shop where she and Jake first reunited. A small, unassuming place that now seemed crucial to the urgency of her journey. With each determined step, her stomach tightened. This was a calculated risk, one that could turn into a downfall or a rebirth. As she entered, the familiar aroma enveloped her, mingling with fear and anticipation. Her heart raced as a flash of memories overwhelmed her. Laughter, melodies, the poetic verses that inspired her soul. And there he was, perched at the corner table, a familiar silhouette echoing the essence she once adored but was wary of. The moment their eyes met, an electric pulse surged through her veins, igniting old emotions and new dilemmas. "Sarah," Jake said softly, his voice an echo of warm embers now glowing in the connection they once shared. The space between them felt charged, filled with unspoken words and unresolved questions. The risk was laid bare before her, as palpable as the air she breathed. What would she reveal? What was she willing to lose to regain pieces of herself long buried? As she prepared to take a step forward, she could feel the threads of her past and present intertwining. The stakes had never been higher, as her choices took on a weight they hadn't held before. Would she allow Jake to help her rediscover her lost self, or would she slam the door shut and firmly declare her priorities? The moment had come for confrontation, both with him and within herself. And as the seconds stretched into eternity, gripped by the realization that everything was about to change, Sarah wondered, would the sound of their shared dreams be reignited, or was it merely a tragic reminder of what lay threatened on the cusp of their reunion? The moment stretched. The world outside faded as Sarah and Jake locked eyes. That familiar spark ignited a fire in her chest, but it was fleeting, filled with hesitation. Would embracing this connection unravel the fragile threads of her current existence? Internal chaos wrestled with longing, her heart thumping like a war drum in the silence. "Hey," she managed, barely above a whisper. The weight of years hung on that simple word, laden with the pain of lost time and the hope of rediscovery. A flicker of surprise crossed Jake's face, quickly masked by an earnest, searching look. "Thought I might not see you again," he replied, his charm still intoxicating but now laced with an undercurrent of vulnerability. He gestured to the chair opposite him. The invitation hung heavy in the air, and yet the choice felt monumental. She hesitated, acutely aware of how her life had spiraled since last they spoke. And there was Max, always present in her mind, all-consuming. "What do you want, Jake?" The question lingered between them, embedding itself deeper than all the unspoken words. The urgency for answers pressed her to confront not just him, but her own tangled emotions. "Just to talk, if that's okay." His sincerity disarmed her, coaxing out the intruding memories of laughter and warmth, dreams painted vividly on their shared canvas. Each sunny afternoon in their memory felt distant now, overshadowed by her present turmoil. She took the seat, her resolve faltering as a rush of memories flooded her. She remembered seeing Jake lost in thought, paintbrush in hand, striving for the perfect color to convey his emotions. Would he be the artist she once knew, or something she needed to shield herself against? "Max is—" she started, but Jake cut in, his voice steady. "I'm not here to compete with your responsibilities." The honesty in his gaze made her flinch. "But you shouldn't drown in duty alone. You deserve to find what makes you feel alive again." Renewed frustration surged within her. Max was a priority. His struggle was her own, yet the truth in Jake's words resonated. She felt her resolve crack just slightly, exposed to the light of possibility. "I don't even know what that would look like. I abandoned everything for him," she admitted, her voice cracking. "And maybe it's time to pick it back up," Jake challenged gently. There it was, this thin line between her past aspirations and present reality. Her art beckoned, a soft whisper promising a return to joy, and she wrestled with the tides pulling her under. In the pit of her stomach, something new ignited. What if I fail? As much as the thought terrified her, it was paired with the liberating prospect of success, of rediscovery. Failure is better than stagnation. You can't let fear hold you captive. Jake's unwavering conviction slowly nudged her to confront her own potential. Could she break free from guilt, from the cycle of self-sacrifice? A radical notion stirred deep within. What if she could honor her commitment to Max, while also nurturing the parts of herself that had long been suffocated? Her heart raced as the walls she had carefully constructed began to tremble, ready to crumble. The confrontation could shift everything. She could allow her passions to coexist with her responsibilities. As they spoke further, the conversation slowly morphed. Ideas blossomed, and inspiration sparked like fireworks. She realized that reconnecting with Jake could be less about reliving the past and more about the future, about forging a new path forward. And in that moment of clarity, a decision brewed. With every word exchanged, she felt her identity re-emerging, no longer just a caretaker, but an artist reborn. "Let's paint together again," she suggested boldly, inspiration coursing through her veins. The stakes were high, but within her lay a burgeoning resolve to cultivate balance and take ownership of her creative life alongside Max's needs. But as the words left her lips, she sensed the world shift around her. Would stepping onto this new path provoke unexpected resistance? Would it deepen her connection with Max, or threaten it entirely? The moment pulsed with potential, shifting the very foundation of her existence. Not just a choice, but a crossroad, a chance to reclaim who she truly was. As anticipation mounted, she couldn't shake the thought. What would her decision cost her in the long run? The answer loomed, but the uncertainty of the future buzzed with the promise of transformative change. The colors of possibility swirled in Sarah's mind, a kaleidoscope of brushstrokes waiting to manifest as she sat across from Jake. His presence stirred a long dormant part of her, the artist whose essence had been tucked away under layers of expectation and obligation. What felt like a simple invitation was instead a potent catalyst for transformation. As she absorbed Jake's words, an unsettling mix of exhilaration and fear coursed through her. It was as if the outside world had turned gray, leaving an electric vibrancy in the space between them. Her thoughts raced. Could she really commit to this artistic revival without jeopardizing everything she had fought for? "I'm serious about painting together," she reiterated, grounding herself. Saying it aloud felt like a declaration, but also a deep admission of vulnerability. "In that case, let's start with something simple," Jake replied, a glint of enthusiasm lighting up his eyes. "We can set some boundaries. I don't want this to interfere with your responsibilities." Boundaries. The word felt foreign, almost a luxury she had long denied herself. Yet, in this moment, it signaled the possibility of balance, and she trembled with anticipation at the thought of exploring her own creativity anew while still being present for Max. What if I find myself lost in it again? The fear rattled her, echoing her past when art had consumed her, becoming both her lifeline and her escape. Getting lost can bring clarity. You might find the pieces of yourself that have been gathering dust, Jake said, his tone imbued with warmth. His understanding felt like an embrace, challenging her to entertain the notion of growth through vulnerability. She considered a hard truth. She had always measured worth through sacrifice, gauging her resolve by how much she could endure for Max. It hadn't been a path of joy, more an obligation that had morphed into her identity. Yet, Jake represented a flicker of a path that asked her to reclaim agency, one that invited her to experience fulfillment beyond just duty. "What do I do first?" she asked, her heart racing, not from fear, but from something she had almost forgotten: excitement. Dive into the simplest thing, a sketch, a splash of color. Just connect with the process. You'll discover more than you expect, Jake encouraged, leaning forward, eyes gleaming with unspoken hopes. For her, for them. A familiar flame ignited in her chest, the artist awakening. Slowly, a spark of determination surged within her. She wasn't just an extension of someone else's needs. She was capable of crafting her own narrative. "I need to practice patience with myself," she murmured, acknowledging the journey ahead would require a gentler approach, one that allowed for missteps. "Patience is essential," Jake agreed, his tone growing more serious. "But don't shy away from making bold choices. That's where the magic happens." She felt an overwhelming desire to interweave her artistic journey with her obligations to Max, instead of viewing them as opposing forces. What if she could advocate for her own dreams and still support him? The idea blossomed within her, like spring flowers breaking through brittle winter soil. "So let's set up a time," she proposed deliberately, sensing the importance of commitment. "I need this to be real." Jake nodded, the earnestness radiating from him almost palpable. "We'll make it our project. No pressure, just creation. I'll also be there when you feel like stepping back or when it's too much." The weight of his understanding reinforced her resolve. Could this partnership offer not just an opportunity for artistic rediscovery, but also a valuable resource to navigate her deepening commitment to Max? The flood of inspiration she felt brought with it a rush of questions. What would achieving balance in her life truly look like? As they spoke about plans and ideas, a delicate thread of vision began to weave together, the balance she sought, an entwining of passion and responsibility, seamlessly constructing a future she once only dared to dream about. Yet, as her excitement mounted, uncertainty loomed overhead. Would her creative resurgence be embraced by Max, or would it rattle the very foundation they had built together? The thrill of exploration, mixed with the haunting fear of potential backlash, fueled her anticipation. All these threads tangled in her mind as they concluded their conversation. A wave of realization washed over her. She was standing on the precipice of a defining moment. Could she forge a new chapter in her life, where her identity was not just that of a caretaker, but also a vibrant artist? As the evening shadows thickened outside, Sarah felt the weight of decisions to be made, choices that could lead her toward liberation or further entrench her in obligation. What lay ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but for the first time in a long while, she was willing to face it. As she prepared to leave, a question lingered in her mind, one that rattled with urgency. Would she be bold enough to embrace this new path, regardless of the cost? The next few days passed in a blur of anticipation and anxiety. Sarah found herself at a crossroads, with her sketchbook poised on the edge of her kitchen table, begging for attention. Each morning, she would glance at it, and the heart-pounding call of creativity nudged at her, but the fear of stepping into this uncharted territory held her back. The chaos of her daily life often pulled her back into its familiar grip. Max's school routine, household chores, and the constant flutter of responsibilities kept her grounded, yet they also pinned her down. She struggled with moments where the thought of pursuing her own passions felt akin to betrayal. Was she ready to embrace that which had brought her joy in the past? Despite the hesitation, Sarah finally agreed with herself. It was time to act. One evening, after dinner, she tucked Max into bed and, with an almost tremulous resolve, took up her sketchbook. Each line she drew was a small rebellion against the silence that suffocated her creativity. The effort felt primal, like a phoenix stirring in dormant ash. As she sketched, the strokes of her pencil began to flow freely. Something within her shifted. Colors swirled in her mind, and each depiction was filled with fragmented dreams and quiet ambitions. At that moment, she discovered that capturing beauty through her art was not just an escape. It was a form of self-affirmation, a way to reclaim her identity. Art was not merely a pastime, it was a necessary part of herself. Before long, she had completed a piece that radiated warmth and complex emotions, a striking contrast to the turmoil she felt within. As she took a step back, examining the amalgamation of colors and shapes, a sense of pride washed over her. Yet, as quickly as it came, doubt crept in, whispering questions that spiraled through her mind. How long could she maintain this delicate balance? Would Max understand her need for this expression? The nagging thought that he might perceive this new venture as selfish flickered just under the surface, waiting to douse her newfound flame. The following night, she found herself gathered with Jake again, this time amidst their canvases and paints sprawled across a sunlit studio. Flashes of passion ignited as they discussed techniques, inspirations, and the transformative power of creativity. Yet Sarah noticed a growing tension tugging at her, a veiled anxiety about its impact on her home life. "Remember," Jake said, offering her one of his encouraging smiles, "the process is just as significant as the outcome. Allow yourself to feel everything without restraint." His words resonated, planting deeper roots within her. She yearned to create freely, yet took heed of the responsibilities waiting for her at home. The more she explored this creative side, the more the challenges of her role as a caretaker emerged, swirling around like a tempest. Over the next few weeks, a precarious dance unfolded. Sarah committed to attending art sessions with Jake, and there was undeniable exhilaration in this new chapter. Yet, juggling her commitments began to fray her nerves. The responsibility felt heavier, wrestling against her impulsive drive for artistic expression. The decision to draw deeper into her artistic identity was becoming increasingly complex. On a particularly challenging evening, after a meaningful paint session, Sarah returned home, her soul still pulsating with the vibrancy of creation. But she was met with a wave of Max's irrational outbursts over homework, layering tension in the already strained atmosphere. Just as she tried to calm him, the confrontation escalated when he questioned why she was spending time on her hobby. The very word stung, wrapping around her heart like a tightening noose of guilt. Was her pursuit of passion at odds with her role as a mother? As tears pricked the corners of her eyes, she realized a painful revelation. It wasn't just about art or duty. It was about nurturing her own essence without neglecting her most vital relationship. In the moment of conflict, She understood that self-care doesn't prioritize one obligation over another, but rather honors all aspects of her being. That brought her to a crossroads. How could she encourage Max to see the beauty of pursuing dreams when she was struggling to embrace her own? As she lay awake that night, these questions echoed through her mind, intertwining with her resolve to soothe him, to bridge the gap between their worlds. Would this tension be the catalyst to find a deeper understanding with her son? The confrontation held the potential for transformation for both mother and child. But could she bring him along on this unpredictable journey of artistic discovery? With determination, she breathed deeply and focused on framing her next move. It could lead to either enriching their bond or jeopardizing it entirely. Sarah drifted into a restless sleep, the weight of her choices pressing on her, and beneath it all lay a burning urge to understand. Could her artistry be the key to unearthing a connection that had been submerged? Morning light seeped through the curtains, illuminating Sarah's sketchbook, now adorned with the beginnings of numerous drawings. Each stroke haunted her, a reminder of the conflict that brewed within her. She couldn't help but feel that the stark lines showcased her deepest struggles, her tension as an artist and her devotion as a mother, grappling with guilt. The sound of Greg's laughter from the living room seeped through her thoughts, pulling her back. During those moments, brief, fleeting, that laughter seemed to mock her. Here she was, trying to rediscover herself while struggling with the notion that joy could overshadow her responsibilities. After breakfast, with unease knotting her stomach, she knew she had to address the previous evening's confrontation. Max wandered around, immersed in his teenage world, yet she could sense the quiet disapproval simmering just beneath the surface. She sat across from him at the kitchen table, masking uncertainty with a determined expression. "Max, can we talk about what happened last night?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. His eyes flickered briefly to hers before drifting away, busying himself with a cereal box, as if it held the answers to their pending conversation. "Fine," he replied, though skepticism colored his tone. "I know you think I'm prioritizing my art over spending time with you," she started, searching for the right words. "But creating helps me feel whole. It's like what you feel when you're playing video games or hanging out with friends. It gives me a sense of fulfillment." Max looked up, and in that moment, she saw the faint stirrings of confusion mingling with curiosity. "Mom, it's just—" He hesitated, putting the box down. "I don't want to feel like your creativity is taking you away from me. I just want you here." His vulnerability struck her like lightning. "I want to be here too, Max, but I need you to know that being a good mom and pursuing my passions can coexist." She paused to collect herself, the enormity of her words resting heavy in the air. This was the dialogue they needed, but was so often unspoken. "Maybe I can include you in my art journey," she proposed impulsively. "We could turn it into a project together, design something cool. I want to show you that following one's passions doesn't mean neglecting what we have." Max's expression shifted, interest igniting in his eyes. "Really? You want me to help?" Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Of course. We could create something that represents both of us. It might even mean something special for each of us." She could almost see the wheels turning in his mind, the pitch of life before them recalibrating. This conversation was more than an apology. It was a stepping stone towards a shared understanding, a bridge between two worlds once divided by misconceptions and guilt. As days turned into engagements filled with splashes of paint and laughter, Sarah found herself rekindling her artistic flame while fostering a bond with Max. Each creative session opened up multiple layers of dialogue she hadn't anticipated. The understanding that came from engaging him in her world began softening the edges of her self-imposed isolation, allowing her to thrive both as an artist and a mother. One evening, as paint splattered across their canvases, Max turned to her with a grin. "See? This isn't so bad." "No, it's wonderful," she responded, her heart swelling with pride. But as she celebrated these little victories, a gnawing feeling gripped her. The new routine felt good, yet she couldn't shake the foreboding sense that there were still challenges ahead. What if Max had a point? What if, amidst their artistic endeavors, she began losing sight of who she was as an individual? That night, as she lay awake contemplating the greater implications of her choices, the silence of the house amplified each question reverberating in her mind. Could she truly balance her passions with the demands of motherhood? Could they steer through this transitional phase without losing sight of themselves? Determined to seek out clarity, Sarah picked up her sketchbook, ready to map out her journey. But as she opened to a blank page, a thought crystallized. The opportunity for deeper healing lay before her, yet it was accompanied by the fear of stepping into even more complicated emotions. With this precipice looming, she noted the urgency within to confront whatever lay ahead. Could her quest for balance be the very catalyst needed to redefine her artistry? And more importantly, how would it further reshape her bond with Max? As the sun rose the next morning, the hues reminded Sarah of the canvas she had began with Max, a blend of chaos and beauty. But beneath the shimmer of hope, unease simmered. It was time to venture deeper into her emotional landscape, to unravel the complex strands binding her identity as both an artist and a mother. Driven by a newfound determination, Sarah arranged her space in the corner of her studio. She pulled in her easel, paintbrushes lined up like soldiers, and put on music that resonated with her within, a mix of soulful melodies that spoke of trials and victories. Today was not just about painting, it was about introspection, about peeling back the layers she had avoided for so long. She began with free strokes, paint splattering on canvas without judgment. Each movement was a cathartic release, a tangible expression of the confusion and guilt swirling inside her. As she painted, flashes of her past revisited her, moments spent neglecting her craft, the decision to put dreams on hold, and the mental tug-of-war as she tried to navigate motherhood. Mid-stroke, a thought jolted her. Was she merely painting her fears? Or was this the genesis of something significant? A deeper understanding of herself, perhaps. The thought set her heart racing, the brushes trembling in her grip. It was easy to blame external circumstances, but the barrier had always been her. Fear had stifled her expression. Guilt had washed over her creativity like a dull fog. She pressed on. With every brushstroke, the canvas began to transform. Suddenly, chaos turned into abstract shapes, each representing the conflicting desires within her, the primal need for artistic expression, and the profound love for her son. The piece was evolving, much like her relationship with Max, messy yet beautiful, filled with nuance. Hours passed, like fleeting minutes, her heart surged guiding her hand. When she pulled back to analyze her work, she saw not just colors, but her journey, her struggles laid bare for her to see. This revelation forced an emotional confrontation, bringing tears to her eyes. Was it always meant to be this challenging? Could she express herself freely without sacrificing her role as a mother? A heaviness settled over her. She needed to talk to Max again, to glean his perspective on why he had initially felt distanced by her passion. Yet, there was a flicker of trepidation threading through her resolve. What if their conversation revealed deeper cracks in their relationship? What if it opened wounds she hadn't been prepared to address? Pushing those doubts aside, she made herself a promise to be brave in both her art and her conversations. Discovering new depths of self-awareness was part of the journey after all. She could not just paint over her vulnerabilities. She needed to confront them head-on, not only for her sake, but to model resilience for Max. Feeling a surge of clarity, she drifted back to her sketchbook. Words began to flow alongside the images, each concept strung together by the realization that it was okay to explore herself concurrently as an artist and as a parent. The insights illuminated that these two facets of her life were not competing forces, but allies in her growth. With a gentle smile, she penned a note for Max, asking him to join her for another art session later that evening. The invitation was more than a simple request. It was a vessel for restoring their connection, an open door to anxiety and courage alike. But as the day wore on, a shadow approached. As she gathered her supplies, unexpected exhaustion washed over her. Creativity felt like a double-edged sword. One side sharpened her resolve, while the other cut deep into doubt. The day loomed heavy with anticipation, compounded by the decisions that lay ahead. As night fell, Sarah stood before the mirror, a flicker of uncertainty reflected in her eyes. Could she weather the emotional storm that was coming in the conversation with Max? Gripping her sketchbook tightly, she inhaled slowly, sensing the gravity of the upcoming moment. In that instant, she understood. Growth required confronting the fear residing in honesty. She was ready to face whatever revelations awaited not just for herself, but for her son. The trembling anticipation clawed at her stomach. The time for another pivotal conversation had arrived. But would she emerge unscathed, or would the truth she'd seek shatter her carefully constructed reality? As the evening settled, Sarah felt an undercurrent of anxiety stirring within her. The studio, bathed in soft lamplight, echoed the silence of her unspoken fears. She stood by the easel, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, rehearsing the words she hoped would bridge the emotional divide between her and Max. The colors on the canvas seemed to pulse with a life of their own, invigorating yet daunting. Max entered the studio, his casual demeanor cloaking the emotional weight of the conversation they were about to have. "Hey, Mom," he greeted, his eyes flicking towards the canvas, curiosity evident in their depths. His presence activated a myriad of contradictory emotions within her: love, concern, vulnerability. "What are we working on today?" "Your perspective," she replied, her voice steadier than her pulse felt. "I thought we could share some thoughts again, like before." The corners of his mouth printed a tentative smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Her heart plummeted. Was he reluctant, hesitant to dive into the uncharted waters of their emotions? Sarah took a step forward, an invitation wrapped in uncertainty. "Together, let's explore what authenticity means to us." Together, they pulled at the threads of their communication from earlier conversations, Max's youthful thoughts intermingling with her deeper reflection. Sarah began to paint again, this time with a more precise brush, using bold strokes to reflect both her interpretation of the past and her hopes for the future. Every line mirrored the duality of their relationship, the fruitful yet tumultuous bond they shared. "Why do you seem so distant sometimes?" Max broke the silence that shielded her thoughts, his brow furrowed. The directness of his question shocked her, exposing a raw essence in their interaction. "It feels like you care more about art than about being here with me sometimes." His words struck a chord deep within her. How had she allowed her passion to overshadow her presence as a mother? Did he see her art as a betrayal? The self-doubt twisted painfully in her chest, yet in that moment she realized his insight was not a rejection. It was a reflection that demanded acknowledgement. "I never meant to make you feel that way. Art has always been my escape, but it's complicated, Max," she responded, both words close to a confession and a plea for understanding. "There's a part of me that needs it, but there's an even larger part that loves you deeply." Max's shoulders relaxed slightly, the tension folding into curiosity. "How do we fix it?" he asked, his voice now tinged with vulnerability. Right there, Sarah experienced a revelation. Renovations in their relationship would require shared honesty, not just from her, but also from him. "Let's start with our art," she proposed, waving her brush towards the array of colors. "We can sculpt our emotions together, each of us revealing what we feel. How does that sound?" Max pondered her words, tilting his head as he observed her canvas, his mother's journey laid bare before him. "I think I'd like that," he said cautiously, a sense of careful determination dawning in his eyes. And so they began. Each stroke on the canvas became a dialogue, a conversation fueled by vulnerability and trust. Layer after layer, they donned colors reflecting their inner conflicts, his blues for confusion and her warm oranges for understanding. As Sarah immersed herself in this collaborative creation, a realization settled within her. The act of painting was a powerful metaphor for navigating life's relationships. Here, among the chaos of vibrant hues, they forged connections anew. Sarah felt momentum gather, a palpable energy transforming her fears into a shared exploration. But just as comfort began to envelop them, a shadow lurked on the periphery of her mind, the lingering what-ifs. Would they truly be able to dissect the complexities of her artistry and the journey of motherhood? Would her commitment to her craft tip into obsession again, jeopardizing the bond they had started to mend? As the night deepened, both mother and son stood before their collaborative work, a surreal reflection of their most authentic selves. Yet, uncertainty lurked, remnants of her prior fears weaving through the newfound hope. What else awaited discovery in their shared creative journey? With every brushstroke resonating louder than the last, Sarah contemplated the pathway ahead, half terrified and half exhilarated. The time had come for deeper revelations, but would they embrace the new tides, or would the depth of their truths be too daunting to navigate? The rhythmic motion of bristles against canvas pulsed like an internal heartbeat in the studio. Sarah's gaze shifted from the vibrant swirls of paint to Max, whose concentration was a tangible thing, almost palpable in the dim lighting. The quiet intensity between them was electric, and as paint mingled, so too did their thoughts. Yet within that creative exchange, doubts continued to wiggle, persistent and invasive. "Mom," Max broke through the soft brushwork, his voice steady but probing. "What if we don't know how to express what we really feel?" A weight settled on Sarah's chest. His question resonated with an innocence that belied its depth. She paused, drops of golden yellow paint pooling on the palette. Could they risk the vulnerability of unknown boundaries when each layer of honesty was a potential fracture point? "We'll find a way," she murmured, attempting to cultivate a veneer of confidence even while trembling inside. "Let's paint alongside our fears. It's okay if it feels jumbled or messy. It might even help." Max nodded, but his expression remained clouded with uncertainty. "Like your art? Sometimes it looks chaotic, but it feels right?" His eyes searched hers, a mixture of admiration and confusion reflected in his gaze. Tension mixed with hope and pushed Sarah into introspection. She had spent so much time curating perfection on canvas, balancing colors, shapes, expression. It was a tumultuous dance of creativity where each stroke felt both liberating and confined. But perhaps, in encouraging Max to embrace the chaotic, she might need to challenge her own fears of unpredictability. Without a moment's hesitation, she dipped her brush into the darker hues of blue, swirling it into chaos. "Then let us paint chaos," she exclaimed, driven by a newfound conviction. "Let it be raw. Let's capture what we're really feeling: fear, joy, confusion." Max's brow furrowed, the tendrils of unease still weaving their way through the bond forming between them. Yet curiosity sparked in his eyes. He followed her lead, smashing colors onto canvas with unrestrained energy, letting instinct take charge. Sarah felt an exhilarating surge of solidarity between them. In asserting command over their artistic expression, they wrested control from the psychological barriers threatening their connection. The chaotic masterpiece started to fuse, colors merging in wild abandon. Turquoise clashed with ochre, and crimson intertwined with emerald. But as the painting evolved, so too did Sarah's internal dialogue. What about her own chaos beyond the canvas? The imbalances that wrapped her heart, the relentless struggle to prioritize her art and role as a mother. As they toiled, thoughts spun, and suddenly a shroud of fear punctuated by clarity fell over her. "Max," she thought aloud, catching her breath. "You're right. We can paint our emotions, but we're allowed to feel overwhelmed. Remember that. Max, emboldened by her vulnerability, shared an insight of his own. "I feel like everybody expects me to be okay, but I'm not. I don't think they see the pressure I'm under." His voice quivered, revealing a raw honesty that stunned Sarah. She met his gaze, love and pride filling her, swelling like the paint on the canvas. "We're not alone in this," she said, swallowing the knot rising in her throat. "Our creativity is our strength and vulnerability. We can share what we feel, just like we do through our art. You can share as much as you want." But as they continued to pour themselves into the painting, the shadows of doubt lingered still. Was this new dialogue enough to shift the foundational truths of their relationship? The studio became a mosaic of emotions, mirroring their tumultuous journey as mother and son. They were no longer just two individuals navigating quiet fears. They had emerged as collaborators, and yet each stroke pulled at the strands of their bonds. As the evening drew to a close, unease wrapped around Sarah's heart once more. Max's eyes sparkled with newfound revelation, yet she felt the weight of future challenges looming on the horizon. Would they maintain this rhythm of shared honesty? Or would the chaos of their emotions become yet another wall? "Let's meet here again tomorrow," Sarah proposed, the inkling of a plan beginning to form. "We can build on this." Max smiled, the tentative expression having evolved into burgeoning confidence. "Tomorrow," he echoed, a spark of hope igniting within their dialogue. But as she turned to clean her brushes, Sarah's thoughts tangled with the fear of what awaited them in those untold conversations. What revelations would each new session bring to light? Would they reveal themselves in ways they never anticipated? And was she ready for that intimacy? The brush had begun to carve a path, but would it also unveil truths Sarah wasn't prepared to face? The dawn broke gently over Sarah's world, a soft light spilling through her window as she stirred from restless dreams. The echoes of yesterday's revelations reverberated in her thoughts, reminding her of the transformative journey she had embarked upon with Max. Their shared canvas had become a tangible map of their emotional landscape, but the adventure promised to deepen with every stroke. Sitting up in bed, she felt an unusual sense of clarity enveloping her. Last night had been pivotal, a much-needed confrontation where both she and Max had confronted their fears and vulnerabilities. Now, standing at the precipice of uncertainty, she knew they could continue to explore these untamed territories together. The artistic collaboration wasn't merely an escape. It was an invitation for growth and understanding. The day progressed with the usual hustle, yet each task felt imbued with purpose. When Max arrived home from school, he was bubbling with excitement. "Can we paint now?" he asked, his eyes shining. A joyous warmth filled her heart. The urgency of their endeavor had sparked something special between them. "Absolutely. I've got a few ideas," she replied, ushering Max into their creative sanctuary, the sunlit studio that had become a sacred space for both of them. As they gathered supplies, Sarah took a moment to reflect. She was fully aware that this journey of artistic rediscovery wasn't without its challenges. Yet each colorful stroke was an opportunity for resilience and connection. Unlike the restraints she had felt before, there was a newfound freedom in allowing her creativity to flourish alongside her role as a mother. Once in the studio, they got to work. The silence between them hummed with excitement, the brushes a conduit for unspoken words. As they splashed colors onto the canvas, the harmony of their collaboration began to reveal something unexpected, a conversation evolving from their shared layers of paint. "Mom," Max said, pausing mid-stroke, you were right. It's okay not to feel okay all the time." A ripple of appreciation surged through Sarah. "I think it's important for both of us to remember that," she responded, her eyes softening. "Creativity is messy, just like life, and it's okay to explore that discomfort together." Max nodded, contemplating her words. "I never thought I could feel free to express my emotions through art. It's like, here, we can just be." The acknowledgement resonated with a quiet affirmation. They were forging a path of authenticity, embracing the chaos of their emotional terrain. Today, they could explore deeper meanings together, beyond strokes of paint. What did this art say about their fears and hopes? As their collective creation unfolded, it became a tapestry, each layer revealing stories of vulnerability and strength. They painted their struggles alongside their triumphs, blending hues of confusion with shades of hope. With every dip of the brush, they built a stronger bond, breaking down walls and tearing apart the uncertainty. After hours of painting, they stepped back, examining their work. The canvas was an explosion of color and emotion, each stroke representing a conversation they had unlocked together. The chaotic swirls felt alive, brimming with raw energy that mirrored their journey. "Can you believe how much we've created?" Sarah marveled as she wiped her hands on a rag, a sense of pride swelling within her. "This is what it's all about. Learning, growing, and expressing ourselves." Max grinned, glancing at their masterpiece before meeting her gaze. "Yeah, I don't think I would have understood all of this without painting together." In that moment, Sarah recognized the profound truth. Art was not just a side passion. It was an integral thread connecting the fabric of their lives. Their collaboration had not only revitalized her as an artist, but also bridged the emotional gaps that had previously felt insurmountable. As the days rolled into weeks, their art sessions evolved into something greater, a sanctuary that harmonized their emotions, propelling them towards individual growth. Max began to open up more, sharing insights that surprised them both. One afternoon, as they balanced brushes and laughter against a backdrop of vibrant paint, Max revealed how much he admired her courage and resilience. "Mom, you actually inspire me. I see you as more than just my mother. You're an artist, too." Her heart lifted. This was the acknowledgement she so desperately craved. "And you inspire me, too. Your willingness to explore your feelings makes you an artist in your own right." Both felt a celebratory spark in that moment, understanding their journeys were intertwined in ways they had yet to fully grasp. Standing before their collective art, Sarah found a profound sense of peace settle in her heart. She had conquered her fears of prioritizing art over motherhood. Instead, she had seamlessly woven the two into a shared existence. One evening, as they finalized their latest piece, a thought bubbled up. "Max," she said, "what if we exhibit our art somewhere? Show the world our journey?" Max's eyes widened with excitement. "Like an art show? Together? That would be so cool." "Yes, but we need to share our experiences too," she explained. "These pieces represent us as artists, but also as a mother and son navigating the complexities of life." And so began another chapter of their story, a commitment to not only create, but also share their journey. The thought invigorated her. This exhibition could be a celebration of their resilience. Weeks later, they found themselves standing before bright lights in an intimate gallery space, surrounded by friends and family. The walls adorned with their artwork shimmered with stories, bursts of color underscoring their growth and vulnerability. As attendees wandered through, soaking in the vibrant display, Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment wash over her. Her heart swelled with pride as she observed the reactions from viewers, not just for the aesthetic appeal, but for the emotional richness the pieces conveyed. Every stroke represented triumph over fear, connection amidst emotional chaos, and authenticity rising from vulnerability. The evening unfolded with whispers of admiration and open dialogue about their journeys. Laughter mixed with respect as they shared their story, standing side by side like collaborators on a mission to redefine what it meant to be both an artist and a mother. As she caught Max's eye amid the crowd, they exchanged beaming smiles, an acknowledgement without words, a celebration of not just their art, but their bond. The warmth of knowing that they had embraced their identities, both as individuals and as a unit, ushered in a new era of mutual respect and understanding. Sarah had achieved a profound transformation. She had conquered not only the fear of her own identity, but had also created a supportive space for Max to rise alongside her. In that moment, standing at the heart of their collective success, Sarah realized she was no longer trapped by the dichotomy of responsibility versus creativity. She had embraced her roles entirely, emerging as a confident, recognized artist and a dedicated mother. And as they prepared for the evening to conclude, amidst the flickering lights, she summoned every ounce of her newfound clarity and whispered to herself, "I am enough. Artist, mother, whole." As they wrapped things up and received hugs from friends, Sarah felt the depths of fulfillment she had long sought. They had navigated the storm together, emerging transformed, and now stood poised for whatever else life had in store. In her heart, a voice echoed, reminding her that the journey was just beginning, and there was always more art to create. Now is the time for you to grab hold of your journey and the power of transformations. Make a commitment to continue following exclusive emotional stories like Sarah's life-changing odyssey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss profound introspective stories that resonate. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support the inspiration you deserve. Comment your thoughts and theories about Sarah and Max's incredible journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to blossom through their own lives. Only true fans of overcoming obstacles understand the importance of lifting each other up.